Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode. This episode has been, almost a year in the making and some mistakes in the past, but I'm so glad to have Angie Johnson off. If you've been listening to the podcast, sometime last year, you heard me say I was going to have her on, and then I did. Then you heard me say in another episode that I had to scrap that one because the audio wasn't good and she was coming back. Well, she's back. Angie is my guest this week, and I'm so happy we finally get to talk again. Angie, thank you so much for being my guest, and welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. We finally are doing it. It's great.
Yes. So I'm so glad to have you on again. If you've been listening, you know I met Angie at the EtsyUp Conference, which was held back in was it July or August of last year? August of last year. Yes. So I talked about it before I went. And then when I came back, I did another episode. And that's where you've probably heard me first mention Angie. And she did one of the sessions there. We're going to talk about that. But also, Angie has been selling on Etsy since 2007. She's been around for a while on Etsy. And I think it's always great to talk to someone who has been on Etsy for a while and has gone through all the different iterations of Etsy and been successful. I think we can learn so much from her. So we're also going to talk about that. And I hope that you will get a lot from her experience. So Angie, before we start, can you just tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Well, my name's Angie Johnson. I grew up in Canada, in the prairies, in central Canada. I've been making my own stuff to sell since I was 16, actually. This is pre-internet. This is definitely pre-Etsy. I used to make clothing and sell it in local boutiques in my city. And that's kind of how I got started. So I continued to run small businesses on the side, basically since I was 16, steadily, throughout high school, throughout university, on the side when I was working at larger companies, which is, something I used to do as well. I worked in the denim industry, designing jeans for various companies. And then in 2003, I moved from the prairies to Montreal, Canada, and lived there for the last 10 years, working for bigger companies, doing my own line. I had a boutique and art gallery for 5 years. And then almost 2 years ago now, I moved to California. And now I'm out here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So since 16, did you teach yourself how to sew or did you take classes?
I was first taught by my mom. She started teaching me sewing when I was about 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. And then I learned through our local 4-H program. I don't know if everyone knows what that is, but it's kind of like Girl Guides or Boy Scouts, but more about actually making things. It's in a lot of farming communities, which is where I grew up. I grew up in a very small town in the country. Okay. So they had sewing classes through that. So then I took that, and then I did go to university for clothing and textile design.
Okay. So you've always known that was your passion, was clothing and textiles and sewing.
Yeah, I was lucky that way.
Yeah, that is lucky because it takes some of us so long to figure that out. No. So now you've been running your own businesses for a while as well. Did you always intend to be your own boss, or when you started running your businesses, even as a teenager, was it something that you just happened to fall into, or was it intentional?
I think it was a bit of both. When I was a teenager, I was just making a lot of clothing, and it was actually my mom who was like, "You have too much clothing. You you should sell some of this stuff.
Oh.
So she was really supportive in that and helped me get going. Like she helped me register my first business,
Oh, wow.
and I couldn't drive yet. So we lived in kind of in the middle of nowhere. You had to drive everywhere. So she would drive me to my appointments with boutiques to pitch new designs to them and to drop off clothes.
Oh.
So yeah, she was really supportive in the beginning and definitely pushed me in that direction. And then it didn't take much for me to be really into it. Like I got a small taste of it and I was like, this is much better than babysitting as a way to make money. So I just continued to be creative. And I had a couple of really great boutiques that supported me from the beginning, small indie boutiques.
Yeah.
I'm still friends with some of the people that ran those stores. So yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And then especially being that you said that you were in what sounds like it was kind of a remote area to be successful at that. I think that's encouraging for people who think or who not think, but who aren't necessarily in big bustling cities, but still trying to grow a business.
And I mean, now there's the internet, so it really doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah.
At all. Like your only limit for location is can you get the supplies you need, and even then internet, right?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so fast forward to 2007 and you end up on Etsy. How did you end up on Etsy?
Oh my God, it's kind of funny. So I was working in the mainstream fashion industry at a clothing company, and I wasn't enjoying it anymore at all. Around that time, the fashion industry was starting to really get into the depths of the troubles we're seeing now with so many stores closing. And the internet was really shaking up the retail industry for clothing, and with things being manufactured in Asia in a bigger way, a lot of companies were shutting down. There weren't as many options for companies to work at. So I felt like I didn't have a lot of career options. And then my boss at the time, who was a really lovely man, kind of gave me a heads up warning that we were going to be shutting our company down, and I had about 4 months to plan. So I was like, whoa, I'm going to start my own company. That seems like a great plan. We're going into recession. But I heard about Etsy. I think I actually heard about Etsy on Design Sponge, like way back. Like I've been reading Design Sponge since the early days.
Yeah.
And I was like, this thing's cool. Like it's very easy to set up a shop. I liked that it was really affordable. And I had a couple other friends, Yana from Super Yana, who she's one of the main ones. She had been selling her own designs online for a few years. So I got a lot of great advice from her, and I just decided to go for it. And I think, 2007, 2008 was a pretty peak time for Etsy. There weren't a ton of sellers on it yet. So if you had like a little bit better photography, a little bit better presentation, you could really stand out. So that worked in my favor. And I started making money like basically right away. I think I made a sale like my second day on Etsy.
Now, when you first opened up your shop, did you already have products that were ready to go? I assume if you made a sale right away that you did.
Yes.
Okay.
I think there was overlap. Like I already had my store in Montreal. So I had my boutique with my ex-husband, and we were selling work by independent designers and independent artists. So I was making some of my own work and selling it in our store.
Okay.
So I just picked a few items that had sold well. Like I said, I've had a side hustle since I was 16. So I kind of always have products I could sell at any given time. So I just picked a few, photographed them, tried to pick things that I knew would be easy to ship. And I sold a little wood, like it looked like a little log pincushion, and I sold it to Todd Oldham's partner, actually.
Oh, wait, that's the fashion designer, right?
Yeah, who now does home decor stuff.
Oh,
But
wow. That was your first sale?
It's my first sale, and he's been one of my design idols since I was like 11 or 12. So I was like, this is a sign from somewhere. I should keep.
So then between then and now, has your product line changed a lot or just a little?
A lot. like so
Okay.
much.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what it looks like today is not what it looked like in 2007.
not even close. And what it looks like today is different than what it looked like 5 years ago. I think
Okay.
that's a really important thing that has helped me keep going is constantly changing my product. Not changing my whole aesthetic, but just continuing to launch new products and feeling where's the market going, what's
Yeah.
working, paying attention to what items are selling,
Hmm.
and kind of let that guide me in my direction.
Okay. And to that effect, or to that point, your session at EtsyUp was titled "How I Developed My Best-Selling Product," and that's what you talked about, was just the whole process you went through, and for finding what turned out to be your bestseller. And
Hmm.
your whole talk was walking us through how we can figure out what products that we have or could make would be our next big hit. Can we talk
Hmm.
about that a little bit? Well, not a little bit, but a lot. Can you
Yeah.
just in summary, because I know your session was it was like an hour or so, but
Mhm.
in brief summary, just tell us how you landed on that product that just hit that spot.
Hmm. Okay, first, I just want to tell people that we have evolved my talk into 2 articles on Etsy in the Etsy Seller Handbook. So people can actually go to Etsy and read basically my presentation in article format, which could be really helpful to people. But I will also summarize
Yeah.
here.
And I did
Um,
see that. I'll link to those because I saw those when they came out.
Yeah, exactly. One came out right after Etsy Up, I believe, or right before, and then the second one came out just in
More
January.
recently.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
January too. So I don't have them in front of me, so I can't go point by point or anything.
Yeah.
But basically, I summed up the steps that you need to really assessing your idea and seeing how your idea translates into a product,
Okay.
because ideas can be great as an idea, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to end up to be a product that people will spend money on
Mm-hmm.
to make you money.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I'm saying basically a lot. um, I usually start with a list of ideas that I keep in my phone. I come up with a lot of ideas all the time, and I find it's really important to jot them down because you will forget them. And you'll
Mm-hmm.
realize how much you'll forget them when you start writing them down and you see this list and you're like, who wrote this list? I don't remember writing any of this stuff down. So that's the first step, because all these ideas are flying out of your head otherwise. So
Yes.
write them down. And then when you feel like you want to add something fresh and new to your shop, refer to your list and look at it critically, which sometimes helps that you can't remember when or how you came up with it, because you can look at it more critically later on. So then you want to look at your list and see which one kind of jumps out at you, which one you're excited about, because you're going to be doing all the work. So being excited about it is kind of important.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to go into this in great detail here because
Mm-hmm.
it's written down much more succinctly in the article.
Okay.
But there's a series of steps that you kind of want to assess the properties of your idea. Is it already in the market? How much competition is there for it? How easily can you make it? How easily can you ship it? Not everything is well suited to selling online. What are your profit margins? All those kind of practical, nitty gritty business decisions. And sometimes you have to just let an idea go. If it doesn't make financial sense, make that thing for yourself. Have fun, be
Yeah.
creative. But if you try to force one of those ideas into being a product that you're trying to make money off of, you're just going to break your own heart and make your life harder.
Yeah.
So you have to be really tough on your ideas sometimes. And then I also, in the article, wrote a lot about how to present your product once you've made it, once you've decided this is a good thing. You can have a great product, but if you don't present it properly, people aren't going to understand what it is. especially when you're selling online. You're working within this tiny box in front of people's face. They can't touch it. They can't try it on.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to really take advantage of what you do have in terms of assets to explain the product to the customer.
Okay. All right. That's a lot. I was making notes and I was like, okay, look, it's just best to link to the article. But you said some good things in there that I just want to expand on a little bit. One of the things that I know, especially as creatives, one of the problems we have is we will come up with an idea that we like and that we think is brilliant, but might not necessarily sell. How much time do you think a seller should give a product before pulling it and moving on to something else? What's a good assessment period to determine whether or not we have a winner or a dud?
Well, Etsy listings last for 3 or 4 months. I can't remember right now. So I always use that as my window. If I list it and it expires before I sell one, it's not good. So that's for my shop though, with the I have. If you're a brand new shop, or if everyone's selling time maybe a little bit different, but I find that is for me what I use. But then also I cheat. Like sometimes I really like something and I'm like, no, give me more time, because timing is such a huge thing with selling products. Like I've had items I've designed and made, and when I used to make clothing in a seasonal collection, you kind of just have to commit to making some stuff and then hoping it sells. So I've also been in situations where I have like 10 of a dress and it's not selling at all, and it's like, well, I have this, I'm going to keep it listed. And then like a year later I'll sell all of them in 1 month. And it's like, I don't understand the world. I don't understand anything. But that's retail. Like a very huge part of retail in general is just accepting that you cannot crack the code 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, because I often wonder about that. It's like, well, how long is too long to hold on to something? And, if it's, sometimes you can just tell if the market does not love what you love, it's, it's a given. But sometimes it's harder because, you kind of, and maybe this is not right, but you kind of get an inkling that, no, I know somebody will like this. I know this is going to sell one day. And just keep going.
And I usually also try at that point to really look at it critically and see, like, maybe it's my photos. Like, maybe I need to rephotograph this item. The way I presented it seemed clear to me at the time, but now that I look at it, maybe people can't really tell what this is very well in a small thumbnail. Or maybe this is an item that I should try to sell in a local boutique. Like, maybe it's better in person. So just kind of reassessing the item, because sometimes you put it in a different place. Even like when I had my store, we would have an item on one shelf, it wouldn't sell. We'd move it to a different location in the store, and then it would start selling like crazy. So try to change the location of your product, either physically, like to a physical location, or change location, and I'm using like air quotes there, by changing the way it looks in a picture.
Okay. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I want to talk about diversifying sales channels. So you're all about that. You have a freestanding website, and for anyone who wants to go check that out, it's norwegianwoodonline.com. So you sell on there and on Etsy. Where else are you selling your products? Is it just those 2 spots?
Right now, it's just those 2 online.
Okay.
I had to shuffle a lot of things when I moved from Canada to the US. So I used to sell in a lot more brick and mortar in Canada. Obviously, that becomes problematic now that I live in another country.
Yes, just a little bit.
It's not impossible. It's just there's exchange rates. There's all sorts of stuff to worry about. So I am working on getting a few more wholesale accounts in the US. And I'm also working with a new company on doing some drop shipping for a couple of my items. It's not possible for everything, but drop shipping is an interesting channel that a lot of people are kind of tackling right now, although it definitely doesn't work for every product, especially handmade ones.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
So how do you split your time between selling on Etsy and your own e-commerce website?
Well, I don't really split it. It's definitely there's a lot of overlap and
Okay.
flowing from back and forth.
Okay.
Um, Luckily, well, I have my website made with Shopify, so
Okay.
shout out Shopify,
Woohoo.
Canadian company.
Oh, are
But
they Canadian?
they are. They're based in Ottawa.
I did
Yeah,
not know that.
yeah, they're great.
Go
Huge
Canada.
Canadian tech success story. Yeah. But they've done a really great job and continue to improve on what I would just put under the category of integration.
Hmm.
So they are really great about integrating with other companies, other apps. Like, for example, my shipping I do through stamps.com because I can import both my Etsy sales and my Shopify sales all into one dashboard on stamps.com. So that's kind of how I can keep track of my orders now.
Oh, okay.
Like, so that's what I mean when I say my schedule really overlaps because I've kind of figured out ways to mush them together,
Okay.
which does inform my decision on whether I join a new platform or not. It's like, how much can this platform integrate with kind of the network or the hive I've created, my own little world, you know?
Oh, I see. Perfect. So stamps.com, it's a separate platform, but
Mhm.
you can plug in Etsy and your Shopify stores. So
Exactly.
okay,
And
so uh-huh.
it brings in the customers' addresses, like all the order
Oh.
information all into one place. It's really great.
Oh, okay. So you don't necessarily, well, not necessarily, you don't check into Etsy, log in rather to Etsy to do your shipping. You just go to stamps.com. Is that so? Do you check in there every day and then do your fulfillment that way?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Okay.
usually during the day, I have my Shopify and my Etsy open all day
Hmm.
on my laptop, and then I open stamps.com when it's time to do shipping. So I
Okay.
still use Etsy and Shopify to kind of keep an eye on things
Hmm.
because I'm getting customer convos and things like that also.
Yeah.
But then when it's time to ship, it's like, okay, it's all right there. I know it's there, and it's really easy to keep track of.
Okay. Okay. So can we talk about time management just in general as a handmade business owner? What does your typical day look like, and do you use any specific tools just to keep yourself organized and all to sane basically?
Mhm. This is one of the biggest challenges for handmade businesses.
Hmm.
It's so hard. And I'm going to be frank, like I still struggle with it all the time. I don't think I'll ever stop. It's just an ongoing struggle. For me, it was a lot easier when in Montreal I had a separate studio from my home,
Hmm.
and now in California it's all in one place. It's challenging when you're working from home. I've done it before. This is my second time, but it changes everything. So I was using like digital means of staying organized, and
Hmm.
I found them way too easy to ignore.
Yeah.
So I went back, I did some soul searching, and I thought to myself, when were you the most organized in your life? And then I realized, oh, it was when I was in university. I was juggling so many things. And what did I do to organize? I used an old-fashioned daily planner and I wrote things down.
Yeah.
So for me, the process of writing the things down and seeing them, it helps me remember things.
Hmm.
So that's just it's about the process, not necessarily
Okay.
the product that I'm using to stay organized. So I'm just like going old school and using a daily planner, and it's
Okay.
working great. It was my New Year's resolution, and I've been sticking to it, and I'm more organized than ever. I'm staying on top of things. It's great.
Okay. And I agree with you. I've never been good about using the online tools for
Hmm.
staying organized because like you said, it's so easy for me to ignore them. I can turn off a device and then, there's nothing to remind me, right?
Yeah.
Or I can turn off notifications. But I use paper too. I write things down and I they're always in front of me or with me. So
Hmm.
I'm always, and I love crossing things off, when I can, mark something off. It makes me feel like I've done something.
Absolutely.
So I agree with you. I'm with you on that. But I do know that there are some people who are very um tech. What's the word? They prefer technology, and so that works for others.
Yeah,
Now,
it's really personal.
it,
Like you kind of have to try a few things and see what works for you, and really pay attention to yourself and see
yeah,
this working for me. Okay,
yeah.
something else if it's not.
Now, do you break up your day into activities for the day? Like, do you devote a certain amount of time per day to creating, another time to handling administrative tasks, and then, like you said, shipping, you'll sit down and do the shipping? Or is your day fluid from one activity to another?
It really depends on like the time of year, what else I've got going on. Like
Okay.
if it's holiday season, things get a bit crazy, or like leading up
Hmm.
to a craft show, I'm
Yeah.
doing a lot more making in those times.
Hmm.
But I generally have found for me, it works better to split up my week rather than my day. So having
Okay.
an accounting day or having a creative day, it lets me just get into the flow of the project more, whatever that project is.
Hmm.
That being said, I mean, I'm answering combos and emails every day, obviously.
Yeah.
Depending on how many orders I have, I try not to do shipping every day because I find it's not the most efficient way to do things.
Mm.
I do it about every second day.
Okay.
Um, so for me, I have tried the making a schedule more like being in school. I mean, like I'm doing an hour of this and then 2 hours of this.
Mm.
And for me, it doesn't work as well. I work better when I'm like, okay, Tuesday, accounting day,
Mm.
just deal with it,
Yeah.
accept it. You're not doing anything else that day, so forget about it. Just do your accounting. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, as far as listings, when it comes to putting your listings on Etsy,
Hmm.
do you drip or do you dump? And by that I mean, do you do like take a whole day to do your photography, and then do your listing, what's the word, where you just queue them up and then
Hmm.
release them one or two products at a time? Or do you do everything all at once and just put everything onto the marketplace?
I definitely drip. I
Oh.
spread it out. Um, I tried both. You know, I've been on Etsy 10 years. I've tried almost everything. But I found it personally better to spread it out. You
Yes.
know, the internet loves newness.
Yeah.
So if you launch everything all at once, you have one day of newness and then your newness is done. And like you can't, you're not going to launch 50 products every day.
Yeah.
So spreading it out, then you can have something new every day, and it gives people a reason to come back to your shop. If they feel like it's fresh and they're being pleasantly surprised every time or every second time they come, it's going to keep them coming back more.
Okay. And that makes perfect sense. And do you do the same thing on your website as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I just want to keep it looking fresh and like it's changing. And, it is actually fresh and changing. It's not just looking like it, because
Yeah.
it's actually new things to check out every time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, regarding running an e-commerce website, there's a bit more work that goes into it to get the traffic to it. Do you
Hmm.
spend much time doing the SEO that's required to drive traffic to your e-commerce site, or buying ads or doing Facebook ads? How basically do you get? Oh, now I'm saying basically. How do you, how do you get traffic to NorwegianWoodOnline.com?
This is a challenge, to be honest.
Mm.
It's, I think, a challenge for everyone who's running their own online store.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of Facebook ads. I mean, I
Hmm.
experiment a little bit,
Hmm.
but Facebook's never been my forte. I never kind of got into it in those golden years before they were controlling traffic. So I
Yeah.
never got a huge following in the first place. So I've always done a little bit better on the other kinds of platforms. Um,
You mean like Pinterest and Instagram, or?
yeah, Pinterest or Instagram or
Okay.
even like Tumblr back in the day. I'm trying to think throughout all the years, like, why did I never really get into Facebook that much? I don't
Yeah.
know. Um, But that being said, of course, have a Facebook page, and I do post on it somewhat regularly, like a couple times a week, but they're not scheduled or anything like that. I kind of just like have an irrational hatred for Facebook. So, that's just me being stubborn and silly about it.
Yeah.
But I've also just had way more success with organic advertising and spreading the word just throughout kind of tastemakers and bloggers and stuff like that.
Yes.
And then I do have a blog on my website, which, is a good way to drive traffic just in terms of creating new juicy content. But I don't post on it as much as I should, which is something that is one of my goals for this year, is to post more regularly. I have a whole list of blog posts that are half written, but when it comes time to like actually post them and then insert the images and just, structurally build the blog post, it takes time.
Yes.
It always gets deprioritized somehow.
Yes. No, I hear you. I'm the same way. I have a list of blog posts, and, some I've written, they're practically done.
I know.
But you're right. It does take time to sit down and then post them and then put the pictures and then reformat it the way I want it to look. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, I have more pressing things to do.
Totally. And that's my critique of Shopify, is that, I know it's different with every layout web design, but in general, their blogging support is not great for all of their layouts. Like they look so outdated, the blogs within the websites.
Right.
So it's really not an inspiring place to go. Like, even when I'm done posting something, I'm not excited about how it looks. Like, I'm excited about what I wrote, but when I look at it, I'm like, meh, it looks like a blog from 5 years ago. Like, not inspiring.
Yeah. Now, this might not be high on your priority list, but I know that there used to be a way to plug in, say, like a WordPress blog into a website that wasn't a WordPress website. Is that still a possibility? And is it something you think might work better for you?
I looked into that because I originally started a WordPress blog, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to feed this into my website. And then I started doing research on the SEO benefits of that. And it apparently doesn't benefit your website at all in terms of SEO when you just have a WordPress blog that's like redirecting to a page of your website. Because it's not considered to be integrated into your website. So I was like, well, that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
Then I found a service that would basically just scan my WordPress blog and import all the text and pictures into my Shopify blog. But then the formatting was garbage, and I would have to go through and reformat the entire post. And I was like, I hate this. I can't do this. So I just stopped using the WordPress.
Okay. Yeah. If you're not going to, apparently, yes. Yeah. There's no point if you're not going to get the SEO benefits. I mean, that's the whole reason we blog.
But it's like 2 years ago, so things could have changed. Like, that's the thing. Things are always changing, right? So I probably look into it again and see what the options are now rather than 2 years ago. So
now, speaking of things always changing, you've been on Etsy for 10 years. That's almost like since the beginning.
Yeah.
What changes have you seen over the years that have been good, and what do you like best about what Etsy is today?
There's been so many changes. It's like really hard to nail down. Most of the changes that I think are really good are the functional back end changes, like the way you actually manage your shop. In the beginning, like when I think back now, it was so simplistic. Like there was no like you can ship within Etsy. I use stamps.com for complicated reasons, like related to moving, and I'm not able to use shipping through Etsy anymore. But it was great when I was able to use it, and you used to have to go through like 5 or 6 different pages to create one listing. Like, it was crazy.
Oh man, that sounds painful.
Yeah, and like no bulk photo uploader, like uploading individual photos, like it was archaic. Like, so they've come so far in terms of the actual functionality of the site as an online store.
Yeah.
Like, immeasurably far. Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you foresee that one day your e-commerce site might overtake what you're doing on Etsy and then you'll leave the platform?
Yeah, that could definitely happen. Etsy's constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea where they're going. I mean, they just launched that new kind of, I don't even know what to call it. It's a new section of the site, but it's got its own URL. It's, what's it called?
Etsy Studio.
Yeah, Etsy Studio. It's for supplies, and I feel like they're really targeting the crafters market, like as a retail store, and they're having videos of how to DIY
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like kind of a whole separate business plan. So they, I mean, anyone who sells on Etsy knows that supply sellers are a huge category. Like, for sure, Etsy makes a ton of money off of people who sell supplies,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. It's great. It's very interesting to me that they're making it a separate site. And I kind of hope that means they're going to make a separate vintage site and a separate handmade site.
Yeah, I thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, at first I was really excited because I do sell supplies. So I thought, well, this is good because
Yeah.
I think when people come onto Etsy, the general mindset is they're looking for handmade products. And so supply sellers kind of get shafted, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because-
It's all people who are making stuff that know you can buy supplies on Etsy.
Exactly. So I thought, okay, well, this is a good thing because if there's a whole different platform for people who sell supplies, then the people who have been in the know can, go over there and it might be easier to find what you're looking for because there's less clutter to wade through and supplies will get highlighted even better because that's all you're there for. And so that's all there is to see. And then I thought, well, what about vintage? Because a lot of people also don't think vintage when they think Etsy. They think more eBay when they think vintage. And so, does that mean that that's the direction they're going? In which case, then, Etsy would have evolved so far from, the original handmade marketplace that it was.
Mm-hmm.
And
Etsy has a lot of, like, we're talking about Etsy like Etsy's a person, but it feels like sometimes Etsy's got a lot of decisions to make.
Yes, she does.
Like, really, there's so many directions they could go, but where they're going to choose to go,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they can't make everyone happy. It's not possible. There's too many people involved.
Yeah.
So I try to remember that all the time whenever an Etsy change happens. Be like, it's not personal.
I
Like,
know.
its own thing. I'm just like a part of it. I'm along for the ride.
Yes, I know. I say that. I'm like, Etsy is not me. So how do I need to change to still, make this work for myself? And, you can always find people who aren't happy. I'm like, okay, I have to watch that I don't become one of those. Like, it's not me. They're doing their thing. Can I still fit in with what they're doing? If I can, great. If I can't, but it's never anything that, that will take me to a point of that's it. I'm shutting down.
Yeah.
It just takes adjustments here and there.
Yeah. I can't imagine them doing anything that would make me so angry that I would shut down. I mean, if I transition out of it naturally, if all my sales start going to my own site and if I don't have any sales on Etsy, well, that's that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would ever just close my shop out of protest. I just think it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Now let's talk about promoting your shop and getting the word out there. You do a really good job about connecting with bloggers. What has been your, if at all, your strategy for promoting your Etsy shop and your products? Has it primarily been through bloggers or something else?
Well, like everything else we've been talking about today, it's kind of evolved over time.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, absolutely fashion bloggers.
Yeah.
It was a timing thing. Fashion blogs were exploding at that time. Etsy was exploding at that time. Um, it wasn't oversaturated yet. There weren't that many. And it was a new kind of concept. People were like, what is this? Regular girls wearing clothes? And it was voyeuristic. It was like reality TV for fashion magazines. It was like very new and fresh and fun.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really happy to be involved in that at that stage. And that helped me launch my brand. Absolutely. But like everything, that's evolved, and bloggers have started working with bigger brands and doing bigger sponsorships. Like people got bills to pay,
Yes.
So they're getting offered more money and bigger sponsorships. Of course they're going to take them. Like it's totally understandable. But I'm still me. I'm still a small business. I don't have the big budgets of like, any big J. Crew or
Mm-hmm.
Old Navy. Who knows? Like whatever companies are working with bloggers now. So I haven't been working with bloggers as much. And also in the last 2 years, I've been kind of transitioning from fashion into home decor. So that's changed everything. That's an entirely new industry, but I'm still working with bloggers in the sense that I'm working with a lot of people on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't call themselves bloggers. They call themselves grammars, I guess. I don't know.
Really?
It's the same thing. Yeah. So yeah, there's like a few different people that I work with, and I've kind of just found them in the same way that I used to find fashion bloggers. I would just like go on the platform, see what I like, see who I relate to, take the time to really read what they post and hear their voice and connect with them and comment and get to know them and just make the human connection and do it really organically, because I feel like that's a better way to spend my energy or my money than just like, working with an agency and just sending out a blast to like a ton of bloggers or Instagrammers. And, they don't care about me. I don't care about them.
Yeah.
We're just using each other to promote, and they want to get free stuff and money. And it's like, that works for some people. Fine. No problem. But that's not the way I'm running my business.
Okay. And when you say you work with Instagrammers, these are like what I talked with someone else about this on the podcast. I think she referred to them as ambassadors for your brand. And so you find someone that you can connect with, that you think can connect with your brand, has the voice that appeals to you or might appeal to your market, and then they talk about your product. Okay.
Yeah, brand ambassadors kind of become the catch-all term for everyone who works within social media, everyone who has a captive audience that will talk about your brand to that audience. So, a brand ambassador can be someone on Facebook. They can be a TV personality. They can be a celebrity. They can be an Instagrammer. It's like whoever has the ears of the people can be an ambassador for you.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's just a matter of finding the right ones.
Yeah.
Is that person really your target market?
Okay. And when you work with these people, do you always necessarily have to pay them with money, or can it sometimes just be a product?
It can be both. It's, it's kind of the Wild West. Like every brand ambassador has their own expectations and the way they like to work. So I just try to always go in being really respectful of them and asking them, how do you like to work? What are your goals with your platform? They're running a business too, right? Like we're both business people. So going in, approaching them from that point of view, like, hey, I like to work together. How do you work? This is how I like to work. Maybe we like to work in the same way.
Okay.
Just being respectful and not assuming how they like to work is, I think, the best way to go in.
Okay. Now, another thing that I know Etsy sellers sometimes struggle with, but, consider a part of growing their business is participating in craft fairs or vendor shows. Now, I know you just got back from the Renegade Craft Fair.
Mhm.
How do you select which fairs or shows that you want to be a part of? And how much time do you invest into those as part of just growing your business and your brand?
This is something that, again, I feel like I've learned a lot about over the
Mm-hmm.
years doing this, and I had a real education in it when moving countries and cities, because in Montreal, I knew a lot of people. I lived there for 10 years. I knew which shows were good for me, which ones weren't, just from talking to other people. But then I moved out here and I was like, I know nothing. How do I figure this out? So obviously Renegade Craft Fair, it's one of the longest running indie craft fairs. It's been going for I think 10 or 11 years. So I knew it was a good one. So no question there, I was doing it. And then through the other ones, you just kind of have to talk to people at the craft fairs, start small, don't overextend yourself, don't sign up for every craft fair out there and spend all this money and then not even know which ones are good.
Yeah.
So do one, I would say, do a reputable one like Renegade or something that's local to you that you know is good, something you've been to,
Mm-hmm.
and then talk to the other vendors there and ask them about what other shows they like to do. And go to shows before you sign up to sell at one. Go and walk around and see what the crowds are like. Watch if people are carrying bags or not. Are people browsing? Or are they actually purchasing things?
Oh.
That's always the biggest hint for me. Like, are people just walking around as entertainment on a Saturday, or are they there to shop and buy stuff? Because
Okay.
you're running a business. That's what matters.
Yeah. So bag carrying is a clue that people are buying because they're stocking up.
And just how many people are there, and how well, like, is the show well organized? Because let me tell you, like, a poorly organized show, it's like not worth it. And the sales usually aren't good if it's not organized well, because they haven't advertised well, and it kind of goes on and on. So scope them out in person. Look at the booths. Look at how the vendors seem to be. Are they happy? Are they selling? Are they busy? Are customers carrying bags? Are they spending money?
Okay.
Yeah, do your research, basically.
Okay. So if you're listening to this and you haven't yet done a craft fair, basically it sounds like it would be a good idea for you to maybe use this year as your year for scoping out the market and scoping out the different craft fairs, so that next year you can decide which ones, if any, you want to participate in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to know that usually applications come out a few months before the actual fair.
Mhm.
So a good thing to do actually is to sign up for the mailing lists of fairs that you're interested in. That's what I did when I moved out here.
Okay.
Just to kind of see how often they email people, learn what their marketing's like, hear the tone of their emails, just see if the vibe of the whole project is something that you want to be involved in.
Okay. Oh, good deal. That's good advice, because I know it's if you just go based on what they say on their website or in a brochure, every craft fair looks fantastic.
Yeah,
But
and one show might be good for one type of product and not for another. So you really have to figure out what show is the right product or the right show for your product.
yeah. Okay. Now, I want to ask about tools and resources that you're using that you find particularly helpful. We've already talked about stamps.com and how you use that to integrate both the platforms you're selling on. Are there any other tools or resources that you're using that really have helped you streamline your business that you can share with us?
Oh my gosh. I don't use a lot of things like that, to be honest. I know some people are so into it and they have great suggestions, and I am not that person. Great suggestions. I mean, stamps.com has been great for me. Gosh, I don't use anything else.
Okay. Well, stamps.com was a good one. So anyone who's selling on multiple platforms can look into seeing if that can be integrated, because when you start to get busier, it's so much better to have your shipping process aligned and just streamlined, rather.
Yeah. Anyone who's still going to the post office in person to ship packages, you need to stop doing that immediately. Like, I think actually if you go to stamps.com, if you listen to the Savage Love podcast, I don't know if people know that one, but if you listen to it, they are always having a promo with stamps.com, and you can get a promo code and get a free scale because you need a scale to weigh your packages with online shipping.
Yeah.
Promo codes out there. You can do it.
Yes. And if you don't listen to that podcast, well, I mean, I guess it's easy enough just to listen to the beginning of one episode, right? To get the promo code. Is that when
Yeah.
they do them? Okay.
Sure. Or like commit 1 hour of your time. It's a great podcast.
Oh, okay. Or that. Yes. I was going to say, Retail Me Not. You can always go to their website. There's always a coupon for something. Almost anything you look for. If you just put it in there, they will have a coupon for it too.
Yeah. I should say that like there is a monthly fee with stamps.com.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's $15. Like if you do a lot of shipping, it's like, I mean, one trip to the post office, I will pay $15 to not have to deal with the post office once. Like, never mind it multiple times a week. So like, it's so worth it to me to just not have to go in there and wait in line even one day.
And do you also get a discount for purchasing postage online?
Yeah, I think you get a discount, but it's similar to the discount you get if you purchase directly from USPS directly online.
Okay.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think sadly stamps.com is only in the US.
Oh, is it really?
I think maybe not Canada.
Oh, okay. See, now you become a regular US citizen.
I know, and I feel horrible about that right now for all my Canadian friends.
Okay. So for anyone not in the US, I will do some research and see if there is an alternative to stamps.com that you can use or subscribe to. I always feel bad for people outside the US when products are only for the US.
I know, it's horrible. It's like, come on, get it together, stamps.com.
I know.
Stamps.ca.
Yes. Okay. Can you give advice to that person who is listening who has also been selling on Etsy for a long time, but might be feeling kind of stale or stuck?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Part of me thinks, who am I to give advice to someone else who's been selling on Etsy just as long as me? But talking to other business owners, it can refresh you at any point in time.
Yes.
So maybe that's the advice. Like talk to your fellow business owners or Etsy sellers. Try to talk to them regularly. Mm-hmm. I just started a small women entrepreneur meetup group here in SF with a group of people I've been meeting through craft shows and stuff. And it's so great to just get together with people and vent about your issues, because sometimes it's been driving you crazy. You think, oh my God, there's no solution to this problem. Then you talk about it with other people and they're like, I've come up with a solution to this problem. And then you can share just like small little things, even just solving one problem like this can reignite your energy. So, making the time to socialize with other people who have small businesses. And not just in a businessy networking kind of way, like real socializing, but you can also talk about these problems.
Yeah.
Because it's a marathon. You're going and going, and also just accepting you will have ups and downs, and it's okay. Like if you have a down period, you're not failing, and you don't have to give it all up. It's okay. It's gonna happen. I mean, good for you for being on Etsy that long, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now, one more piece of advice, but this time for that person who isn't exactly new, but their business is just ramping up. Things are just picking up on Etsy. What's your best advice to that person?
Oh my gosh. That's a really hard point in time because you probably don't have any employees or help yet. So you're probably working a lot.
Yes.
So I think probably my best piece of advice is to get an accountant if you don't already have one.
Oh, very good. Yes.
You do not need to be doing that work, and that person's going to do it way better, and they are going to save you money. You just have to trust.
Yes.
Like the amount of time you're going to waste trying to figure stuff out, get an accountant.
Oh, yes. That's a good one. Especially if you're new to this and you've never filed business taxes before and you don't know what you need to track or not track, and an accountant will save you.
Alone, like the stress levels alone of trying to figure it out yourself,
Yes.
it's worth the money. But also, their job is to save you money if you have a good accountant, and don't just go find an accountant like 2 months before your taxes are due. Like, build a relationship with your accountant.
Yeah.
Figure out a situation where you say to this person, hey, I want to be able to call you sometimes. Like, let's figure out a billing model for that.
Yes.
I don't want to talk to you once a year. If I have any sort of problem, I want to be able to send you a quick email.
Yes.
And sort that out. They should be part of your support system. A good accountant will change your life.
Yes, it's true. And I'll tell you how I picked my first accountant was, it was a guy who was he was giving these local classes at a community center about just how to save yourself on taxes. Not doing anything illegal, but just teaching people where they could save money when it comes to taxes, like how to, if you were working, how to structure your W-2 so that you weren't overpaying in taxes, or if you owned property, things that were tax deductible and things like that. And so I would attend his classes and then ask questions, and then it gave me a good idea about, just what type of person he was, how knowledgeable he was, and all whatnot. So if there are people in your area, I would check the local library, see if there are people who give those sessions or classes, even if you have to pay for them. It's a good way to interview without necessarily interviewing someone you want to work with, and maybe not just accounting, but different services that you might find you want to use along the way.
That's great advice.
Mm-hmm. Angie, what's the best way people can reach you if they want to get in touch and hear more?
I would say through the contact page on my website,
Okay.
NorwegianWoodOnline.com.
Okay.
There's a contact page. It goes directly to me.
Okay. All right. And I will have a link directly to Angie's website, as well as her Etsy shop and everywhere she is on social media. So if you want to follow her, you can easily do that by following any of those links. Angie, thank you so much for doing this again. I'm so glad we were able to loop back around and have this conversation. Well, another conversation. Yeah. It's been very eye-opening, and it's always nice to hear and learn from someone who's been around and whose business has gone through just different points and evolved, and you're still around and you're still doing it. I think that is so encouraging, especially for anyone who is aspiring to get there. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ijama, for having me. It's I don't know, I'm new to the world of speaking on podcasts, but I listen to podcasts all the time, so it's kind of fun to contribute for a change.
Yes, thank you so much. You've been very helpful, and I know this will help others. So I appreciate you taking the time. You sound like a podcast pro.
Oh, wow. New career move.
And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.